Good evening.
How are you doing?
Here.
Are you ready to rock and roll? All right. I call to order the Waverly City Council for July 17th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed by our city clerk, Carla Geyer?
Move approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded. Council discussion. All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Those with no, unanimously approved. Our guest council person for today is Kyle Peters. It's good to have you with us, Kyle. Maybe not everyone in town knows you, but since they don't, could I ask you to just share a little bit about yourself? That'd be helpful to us.
Yep, no problem. Kyle Peters, grew up in Waverly, graduated from Waverly Shell Rock, went to Wartburg, moved away. Now my wife and I have been back in town for about 4 years now. So she's a physical therapist in town. I work for John Deere in Waterloo. So although new to the council, I know majority of the faces. So yeah,
It's good to have you.
thanks for having me.
And full voice, no vote, but full voice anytime you'd like to speak on anything. Just fit right in.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. This time I'd entertain any comments by the public on any items not on tonight's agenda.
All right, my name is Jess Hamilton, co-chair for Waverly Heritage Days.
And I'm Darwin Ritgers, the other co.
We have a lot of people to thank for Heritage Days weekend. With Waverly Heritage Days. We have a committee of about 12 to 15 people that help put this on. And if any of you were able to attend this last weekend, you saw it was quite an event. We have several sponsors that we need to thank, including the City of Waverly, for their gracious donation. We also need to thank the Parks Department with Tab Ray and Paul. They help us put this whole show on. Somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, you guys put all that fence up and you do all the moving of the tables." I'm like, "Oh, no. Couldn't happen without the Parks Department and without the Street Department. They put in all our signs, they put up the fencing, they do a phenomenal job for us." We also need to thank all the people that came and attended. It wouldn't be a good weekend without all the attendees. The Chamber of Commerce for working with Dustin here on some of the things that took place down in Coleman Park. A couple of the people we really need to thank is volunteers are hard to find, as many of you know who work on different volunteer committees. And Oktoberfest and Rita stepped up and helped us cover our spot in the beverage tent on Friday night. And we had about 20 people per shift, and they're 2-hour shifts. So we had from 8 to 10 at least 20 people between those two, Oktoberfest and Rita between 8 and midnight. So we really need to give a big thank you to them. We also need to thank the fire department and all that they did for us. They helped organize the parade up at the top. They helped at the beginning of the parade. Yeah. They helped us organize a dunk tank and ran that for us. They did the fireworks display, which was huge. So, I mean, they really, really helped us out.
You know,
We're not actually seeing
for all the organization part and the volunteers, that's
you have to speak.
Almost
pick up the mic.
It's kudos to everybody, but when you think about the number of people that have now a new thought, a new vision about Waverly, who's never been here before. Our final stats aren't in yet, but we're looking just a fraction over 15,000 people that in one way or another participated or enjoyed Heritage Days. We had added so many new activities. The family and children's section was huge. We're looking at trying to expand on that again next year. But one thing that I took away from this, and I had a brief moment this morning with the mayor, was actually it wasn't a committee's program, it was Waverly's program. And they got to, people got to see Waverly the way we all really want it to be. And we got the comments about the way the parks looked, the way the fairgrounds looked, the number of attendance in each one of the events. We literally drew people from several different states. You know, we put on a simple fishing tournament thinking we're not really sure what we're going to get. That turned out to be just a wonderful event for Waverly. And we literally drew people from as far away as the Quad Cities, Des Moines, that came here just to fish. And I know I talked with Tab, the month before our fishing tournament, our rivers had been full every weekend. People coming up and scouting and fishing here. Our hotels were all full in Waverly this weekend. I'm hoping we can take a little bit of credit for that. So the overall event was phenomenal. And then if you got to see the fireworks, you know, just how amazing those were. We literally received calls from Janesville. There were people that far away that were able to see our fireworks and hear them and were amazed just how big they were and how you get into that finale. The firefighters did a fantastic job for us. But we want to continue, and we got a lot of ideas. Probably won't be able to do all of them, but that's the good thing about brainstorming. We throw everything out and we'll see what we can make work. But an overall huge thank you. Dustin here did a fantastic job. He does have one of the photos or a couple photos of the crowd shots. When you think about the front stage and where that was positioned, and elbow to elbow people 100 yards wide and as far back as you can see, it was an amazing shot. And it was like that, especially Friday night, a little lesser on Saturday night, but overall, no complaints. We had to ask the assistance of the police department one time. Excellent response, took care of a minor incident, and we were able to move right on. With their quick response, it diffused something that really could have maybe turned into something, but did not. And we were proud of that, and we got a lot of comments about that. So overall, a big thank you to the council, a big thank you to the community.
And the council applauds you.
I should just note, on our Facebook page, we'll be posting all these overhead pictures and so forth. They are pretty impressive to look at. If you get an opportunity to do that, I would encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Other comments by the public on any items not on tonight's agenda? Mary.
Hi, Mary Sheldroth, Waverly. Because we just had Heritage Days, we wanted to just put out there to the council and the public what a great weekend it was also, and how those who are supporting the Waverly Ped Bridge believe this is part of our heritage to preserve and protect our neighborhoods. Pedestrian-only bridge supporters believe a new pedestrian-only bridge will do three things mainly, and we've said this all along: preserve our heritage, protect pedestrians, bikers a safer way, and provide the pleasure and promotion of healthy living through encouragement of the usage of the pedestrian bridges, bikers, joggers, the trails, and all that. And we saw that this last weekend with the Southwest area with the historical designation. In the afternoon, the tours, you probably drove by, hopefully participated, saw the balloons and residents walking from house to house, looking those areas over, and just, you know, pausing and reading about the historical significance of those. neighboring houses and what has gone into it in the past and how that can continue to be preserved. And that's something that with the Ped Bridge, we're hoping that in the southeast, where we have the blue signs, historical district, and now we have it on the southwest side, which is really cool, those blue signs by the street signs, designating it as a historical district also. And we hope that the Ped Bridge someday will be a destination that we will take pride in with our city, just like they were saying the parks and other things. And we hope this will be another thing that will just preserve and protect our history and our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Other comments by the public? We have 3 items on tonight's consent calendar. They are a bill from McClure Engineering for the airport land acquisition work. We have a liquor license for Cobblestone to approve, and we have an outdoor premises license to approve for the poorhouse for a July 22nd event. Is there a motion, please?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no, unanimously approved. Regular business item number 1 is our review of Waverly Utilities 2016 audit. And Vicki?
Sorry. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff. Thank you for allowing us to present our 2016 audit findings this evening. My name is Vicki Hall. I'm the Director of Finance with Waverly Utilities. First, I'd like to mention that this audit went very well. We had no adjustments needed, which is great. Also, there was no material weaknesses in our internal controls, and this is the 3rd year in a row for that. So it's quite an accomplishment for our utility as well as our staff, and I want to commend our staff on that. Per Iowa Code 38810, a telecommunications utility has to prepare and maintain records which record the full cost accounting of providing telecommunications services. This means that the telecommunications utility books have to be separate from the electric books. Our auditor has confirmed this, and if you look at the audit, there's 2 distinct utilities listed. I had passed out a handout, and I wanted to go over that. Our first handout compares 2016 to 2015. There was a slight decrease in kilowatt hours from year to year. Operating revenues increased along with net income, although net position decreased from the prior year. Page 2 compares 2016 to 2006. We wanted to show what it looks like over the years, and if you see, kilowatt hours have increased about 5% since then. Also notice that miscellaneous revenues increased $4 million. This increase is due to selling of capacity in our generators as well as the lease of the fiber to the communications utility. For expenses, operating expenses increased from 2006 to 2016 by $9 million. And as well as production of energy cost increased $9 million. On page 3, this graph shows purchase power and transmission has been volatile over the last decade. As you can see towards the end of that graph, it's starting to level out, and we estimate that that's starting to not increase as much. On this last page, we're showing purchase power and other operating expenses. And what this shows is that our purchase power has increased significantly, whereas our operating expenses has remained pretty well flat for the last 11 years. That's all I had to present for tonight. If you have any questions, we're open to those.
Council?
On the graph that shows purchase power, 85 to 2016, I moved to Waverly in 2009, and I noticed that's the year everything started going up really fast. So I'm not sure if this was my fault for coming here, but I am kind of curious to know, can we account for what's driving it, the increase so fairly dramatically in the last decade?
Sure. I think Daryl explains that best, so I'll have him come up. Daryl Wenzel.
Good evening, Daryl Wenzel, Waverly Utilities. And Mike, to answer your question, I don't think you were the driver of the steep wholesale increases. Multiple factors. There was a start of MISO, which occurred in 2006, which a federally controlled market for electricity. So decades prior to that, and you'll see on that one slide, rates were pretty stable. One of the fluctuations was, what's the price of coal doing? When we went to the market structure, it was more like, what is the price of electricity worth? So that was a huge driver. MEAN joined a joint action agency called MEAN, Municipal Energy Association of Nebraska. And MEAN had bought into several, in anticipation of the market, they wanted to secure their power supply. So they invested heavily in multiple generation sources, coal plants, wind farms. They bought some PPAs from a nuclear power plant and some other purchase power agreements, trying to say we don't want to be subject to the market. When the market launched, it launched at 6.2 cents per kilowatt hour. 6.1 cents. Typically, utilities were paying about half that for wholesale power. So the market opened high. Then the recession of 2008, 2009 hit. You saw market prices start to decline, natural gas prices start to decline, so the market actually looked better than the stance that MEAN took to buy into the steel. So those drivers, the market, the trying to find protection from the market, accumulation of those things occurring at once drove our wholesale rates dramatically upward. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. You said what I thought you would say. Thank you.
So it wasn't you, Mike.
That's a relief.
I'm curious, where do you see that going in the future, and what levers do you have to pull to stop that trend?
Yeah, I sat on MEAN's board, and we formed an ad hoc committee about 3 years ago to take a look at their rate structure to see how we could level this off. They were seeing huge spikes the way they had their rate structure set up. They were charging us demand charge and incremental demand charge based upon weather patterns. And the first year I was here, they were short $6 million. And they came back to the members and said, okay, we need X amount of money. I think Waverly's share was $600,000. And once I got on the board, I said, we can't have this volatility. We need to get these stabilized. And we have changed that to a fixed cost rate structure. So all of MEAN's fixed costs are now covered with no questions. We've got to pay this amount to cover their costs. And then we reduced the energy charge to just what we pay for energy. So we pay what in the industry you would call a demand charge, which is our fixed cost recovery charge, based on a 3-year load average, and then we pay an energy cost of just over 4 cents. So when you combine those two, what we're seeing is our chart shows a little bit of a gradual increase because we're conservative. But I think what we're going to see is probably just flatten out on that. We're seeing across the industry, yes, less sales of kilowatt hours, so less market buys, less PPA quantity of kilowatts we have to take off of some of those contracts that MEAN had. So we believe it's going to flatten out. But we went ahead and built in this chart showing 2 or 3% increase. So one mechanism we set up last year, the board approved an energy cost adjustment. If we set that price too high, it will come back to the consumers through the ECA. So that's a nice mechanism. I think 2 years ago we announced a 9% increase. It ended up being 7.3% because the ECA was able to reduce that on the consumers. So we believe it's going to flatten out.
So probably won't go up in the future then, or? I guess the reason I ask is I see kind of in the industry, at least in Iowa, I mean, one of our biggest competitors is basically reducing their reliance on coal, and have committed to no cost increase or rate increases for a few years.
Correct.
So I was just curious how we can compete in that type of market.
Well, and on the other side of that coin, Alliant just announced a 10% increase. Same investment in a new gas plant in Marshalltown. They also have coal plants in there. I think Mid-American's story is unique on what they've done. On the mean side, we're looking at expiring PPAs or power purchase agreements that were extremely high before the recession. And just last year, we had a large PPA roll off. And now we're purchasing
PPA?
It's a purchase power agreement. So Mean would buy power from Black Hills Energy or some other provider. Part of that agreement rolled off. We were able to replace about 8-cent power with closer to 3 or 4 cent power. So a part of our whole portfolio. Mean is comprised of 68 municipals in 4 states. So we've banded together, say we're a larger buying unit. Let's get lower cost power. So we're doing everything we can through the Mean connection to get lower cost power going forward. So that will help going forward.
You see rates actually coming back down then, or, you know?
Well, there's a lot of factors. I'd love to see the rates come back down. And that's certainly a possibility. But you have to keep in mind that Mean did buy into some steel. They bought into some coal plants. And we were seeing pressure under the last administration on coal, driving up costs there to meet the new regulations. Now, those have been put on hold, so we're not seeing any pressure there. So I think at least during the next term, 4 years, we may not see any increase in those costs. If they leave the coal plants the way they are. We own part of Louisa. We own part of Walter Scott 4 coal plants. We own about 10 megawatts. So we were seeing increased pressure again there and costing Waverly more money to keep those going. But we've seen that stop, and we're now selling some of that energy back into the MISO market. So there's a whole mix of things. You know, how fast does solar prices drop? That could have an impact on our well-being. So we would love to get our rates down. That's certainly what we're focused on.
So if you see solar, the cost of solar continue to go down, is that good news for us, or is that not good news?
It's both. It's good news that a renewable, non-polluting source of energy is becoming available. Solar comes with a problem of not being reliable when the sun goes down. It creates this arc as the sun rises and falls, so you'll still have peaks on either side of it. So from our distribution perspective, we need to make sure we capture enough revenue to cover the distribution plant. And that's something that we're looking at in our pricing, and we're looking at a new business model, a new rate model that would have more of a demand component for residential and a lower energy cost. So we're aware of it, we're looking at it.
So we own portions of Louisa and Walter Scott 4. What's our advantage to owning that part of that? Is the advantage worth the extra cost? Because you say our operating expenses without the coal plants is flat, but if you add that in, what has that increased over the same period?
Well, I think most of the investment's been made. I know Louisa has all the latest and greatest pollution controls already put on it. I believe Walter Scott has as well. So we should be fine. We shouldn't see any huge dramatic. If they come out with a CO2 tax in the future, there's a CO2 tax. It's been estimated in the MISO footprint to be a $9 billion issue. So they've guesstimated maybe 2 cents a kilowatt hour just for a CO2 or a carbon tax. So we really don't want to see a carbon tax come into play.
So again, our advantage to having this, is this power that we consume, or is this committed to the Mean Cooperative and we buy power back from them?
Yeah, we have committed it to Mean. They do the selling into the MISO market, and that offsets what we buy from Mean. So we do get an advantage of that. when we make a capital improvement at Louisa or Walter Scott, and let's say it costs $175,000, Mean pays us for that capital improvement, and it goes into the mix and their production mix costs. So even though we pay cash up front, we get it back from Mean. So it's really a good relationship to have Mean pick that up.
Mean picks that up, but then we're also on the hook for a tremendous amount of debt with Mean. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the 68 members have all committed to back these bonds that Mean went out and purchased into these power plants.
So we're tied in with Mean long term, probably out till 2040. Is that correct?
2042, and that's questionable because if they have to decommission a plant, we're still on the hook for decommissioning.
So what is the extent of our portion of that debt? What are we responsible for being part of Mean that ties us to that cooperative to where we cannot have any other option other than them?
I don't know if they've run the calculation. If Waverly wanted to get out, what's the dollar amount somebody would have to pay to get out? I don't think that question's ever been presented to them. A smaller community, about half our size, it was about $25 million. So they haven't specifically run the numbers for Waverly.
25 million, you haven't run the numbers, you don't know how much we owe within the Mean Cooperative, what our portion of the debt that we owe out till 2042?
No, all 68 members are responsible for it.
What's our portion?
We're all in it together.
Yeah, but it's
If you wanted to
it's
pull out, of Mean will do a cost analysis and say, if you want out, here's a dollar amount. We have not done that.
I guess I'm just kind of wondering, kind of to his question, would we show that as a liability in our financials then? Because we're really kind of, you could say we're indebted or encumbered to Mean. And that's.
It's a footnote into the financial statements, and as far as bonding is concerned, the underwriters hadn't considered it encumbrance. They think that it is an advantage, actually. So,
how would that be an advantage, I guess?
Did not show the liabilities on our book for.
we're sharing the risk of the market. We're not in the market buying and selling every day, so that risk is evened out.
I guess that's kind of the question I have. If we weren't part of this, what other option would we had other than trying to wing it on our own?
Yeah, I think you'd have to go back to and look at the RFPs that Glenn Cannon and the board at that time put out for new power supply, and see what your options were at that point. And I'm not familiar with which company has responded to an RFP. From experience, I know we went out before the MISO market started in another community, and we got 16 responses, and 15 said whatever market price is, that's what you'll get. So, again, before the market came into existence, power was always sold at cost plus 10%. So as the state did an integrated resource plan, either Mid-American or Alliance said, you know, you're going to be 600 megs short in 10 years, you need to build another plant. So they would say, well, let's build a 1,200 megawatt plant. Well, we're doing it all at once. So they would have an excess 600 megawatts available. And that's where a lot of munis would say, hey, we'll take some of that energy you have for sale, and they would sell it at cost plus 10%. So those days are gone. Now it's strictly based on the market.
Okay, any other questions?
One thing that you made a point of is, you know, with the Waverly Light and Power and Waverly Communications Utility, that they're two distinct, different businesses. But yet, we lease, or the communication utility leases the infrastructure from Waverly Light and Power.
Correct.
So we are incurring millions of dollars worth of costs of infrastructure in support of Waverly Communications Utility.
Waverly Communications, Waverly Electric Utility has a purpose on the fiber with our new AMI infrastructure, SCADA readings, and so they actually have a use for that fiber. The telecommunications utility is paying them a lease payment every year to use it for telecommunication services.
But the SCADA system does not run to every house in Waverly, and that's where a lot of our infrastructure costs are, is to build this out so we can service residential neighborhoods. But yet we're still spending Waverly Light and Power money from every ratepayer that is on Waverly Light and Power in support of this initiative to get Waverly Communication Utilities up and running. You don't lease fiber to Mediacom or any other company. It is solely for the benefit of Waverly Communications Utility.
And the electric ratepayers in the form of SCADA and AMI ratings.
Okay, but still, every electric customer, whether or not you use Waverly Communication Utility, is still on the hook to pay for that infrastructure.
That is correct.
Any other questions?
Maybe there's an advance between the Waverly Municipal Electric Utility and the Waverly Communications Utility in your statement of cash flows, $1.591 million. Am I reading that incorrect? Was a transfer from the electric utility to the cable utility?
It was not a transfer, it was a loan.
Oh, okay. So there's transfers of money back and forth. We could say that, and maybe that's kind of maybe that's where you're getting at, but maybe this is an addition to that. We're actually transfer money from the electric customers to the cable company.
That's one way to look at it, Dave. I look at it as the ratepayers are earning 4.35% interest on that loan.
Okay.
What is the anticipated payback on that loan? Are we making, is the communication utility paying back? We have a structure there in place to pay that back, and at what point is that going to be repaid?
I believe it was a 15-year loan structure.
And those transfers will be reflected in the audit.
That's correct.
And that was approved by the council, wasn't it?
That's correct.
No, we didn't approve a loan, did we?
Yeah, we approved the transfer from the Waverly Utilities, Waverly Light and Power to the communications utility, allowed them to make that loan.
Or the startup.
That transfer, but what is
Yeah.
where we're sitting right now, what is the added cost of infrastructure that we are installing? What have we bonded for in the last 2 years in order to get the infrastructure up to where we can service residential neighborhoods?
I believe it's about $5 million.
So that bonding is paid back by who? That is
By the electric ratepayers.
by the electric ratepayers.
That's correct.
There again, the communication customers are not solely paying for that is, and if you choose to be with the communication utility or not, you are still paying that infrastructure costs in the way of interest charges on these bonds that we are paying, correct?
Correct. For the fiber optic, ratepayers are paying for the fiber optics. Telecommunications is paying the electric side for lease of that fiber.
And how does that balance out? I mean, is the lease amount enough to cover the loan payments for the $5 million?
We spread it over, I believe, was it 15, 20 years? And we included interest in that calculation when we did that.
So eventually, the basic utility or the electric utility customer will see no added cost to them,
Right, that was our objective.
but it's going to take 20 years to do that?
Well, we're paying the bonds over a period of time,
And this in
I think
no
it's
way has any effect on...
about the same amount.
And this won't have any adverse effect on our electric rates?
That's our goal, yes.
Is that what we're seeing now, I guess, is
Yes.
because I don't see our electric rates as being very reasonable in comparison. You go down the road towards Cedar Falls to Janesville, and they're paying 8 cents, 8.5 cents.
That's a previous conversation that we've gone too many times, and I think
I'm not sure what
we'll
Cedar
just agree.
Falls or Mid-American's debt load is or other factors
I'm
that
not
they
talking
consider
about
in
Cedar
their
Falls, I
rates.
was talking about Janesville on Mid-American, they're at 8.5 cents. They're able to provide power to their customers considerably less price than what we're charging. And I'm just trying to get to the bottom of where that extra cost is. What, you say that we're buying power for 4 cents, but yet are you saying our average cost is 14, or your average cost to the ratepayers?
Saying we're buying energy for a little over 4 cents, but not demand charges. We have transmission and demand, or capacity, which would be your demand charge.
Which accounts for how much?
Total cost?
Total cost to the city, or to Waverly Power, to get that power in.
Approximately 7.2 cents.
So our cost is 7.2 cents, fully loaded, to provide power.
Correct. That doesn't include distribution system.
That
Doesn't include staff. That's just to get power to here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If I just follow up on the purchase power and transmission cost sheet, I think that you'll see in the audit the increased purchase power costs. I think it's a $9 million increase over a 10-year period. So if you want to know why our rates have gone up, you can look strictly at wholesale power costs.
Yeah, and I think I'd be curious, maybe in a previous or down the road, it'd be interesting to know. I'm just kind of getting an uneasy feeling about Mean and kind of the discussion we've had, and maybe there's nothing there, but about our ability to actually have the local control. And if we're talking about wholesale costs and everything that's going on, and the discussion about the bonds and the commitments out to 2040 and so forth, I think it would be prudent for us to understand what our liability is there, and if something would change significantly, how we could get out of that situation. So that'd be. I think that'd be, from my standpoint, that'd be interesting to know, or not interesting, it'd be valuable to know.
Are you saying there's a cheaper alternative?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I suppose we could build our own coal plant, but I don't think that's
There-
necessarily
But,
a cheaper alternative.
I mean, what Dan explained, there's definitely a cheaper way for us to get power, or consumers to pay for electricity to their home. But if we're, the local control and so forth, there's trade-offs there. So I'm just curious how that whole thing works.
So are we looking at any rate increases in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think we projected 2 to 3% next year, but we haven't finished budget, so we can't say what that number is. But I think in our assumption model, we put in 2 to 3%.
Because our rate stabilization fund has dropped $4 million in the last 3 years as well. And is that due to increased purchase cost pricing?
Our rates with Mean increased significantly more than what we increased to our ratepayers. We didn't pass that along immediately. We spread it out over time because we didn't want that impact to impact our ratepayers all in 1 year.
Yeah.
So as our rate stabilization fund is being dwindled, we're going to immediately see any rates that passed on by Mean? Any rate increases that are forwarded to us from Mean, we're going to see those proportional rate increases.
I think any increase or decrease at some point when that rate stabilization is gone. So if Mean decreases our rate, we would see that. If it ticks up, we would see that as well.
Historically, over the last 10 years, how many times have they decreased their rates?
Over the last 10 years, I think you see on the chart, there was no decrease.
There was no decrease. So why would we see that? Why would we expect there to be a decrease in the future, I guess, is what my question is.
I was talking about the purchase power agreements earlier, about some of the high-priced ones coming off that they signed at the beginning of the recession. So that would have an impact on Mean's overall portfolio and drive the cost down.
Okay, I think we've done enough here. This is a lot of repeat conversations we do every year. But we thank you for a wonderful report. You're doing wonderfully in terms of reliability and everything possible to keep us steady and going forward. I think the town is very proud of what Waverly Utilities does. I know it's kind of the envy of the many, many communities that we have our own, and the spin-off on I'm speaking. So when we do the communications, it's a great benefit to the town, to the businesses. You've stabilized, so you're giving us a good boost forward. Thank you for both your questions, however, but I think we've done enough. You want a last comment, Dan?
The last thing before, and right now there's over 120 properties for sale, residential properties for sale in the city of Waverly. I've heard several comments that the reason those are being sold or the reason people want out is because their utilities are too high and their taxes are too high. And I guess that concerns me. And, when we're looking at rate increases and being tied to a certain organization for the next 20 years, I guess I'm a little bit concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Regular business item number 2 is the sale of our general obligation bond. City Administrator, thank you for your expertise in leading this process. This is your area of strength. For the public, maybe a quick overview would be helpful, the amount and what we're headed for with this.
Yes, sir. The next 2 items are merely directing the advertisement of the sale of the bonds so we can do the official sale on August 7th.
Okay.
And I will come back to council during that meeting for the acceptance of the best bid at that time. So you're then approving tonight the electronic bidding process and then the official statement, which was sent out last week. It's a healthy 200 and plus pages. You should read it. I had to read it. You should all have to read it. It was not very enlightening, but necessary. So that's what the next 2 items would be. The first one is the $1.5 million for engineering, et cetera, and the small projects for the Parkway. The next one would be the $600,000 for the reimbursement of the purchase of Champions Ridge. So not to foreshadow too far.
Yes. For the public, this is a repeat conversation. We've been going over this and over this, but this is for advertisement of sale. Motion, please.
Move approval of Resolution 1793, a resolution directing the advertisement for sale of $1.5 million amount subject to change, general obligation bond, Series 2017A, and approving electronic bidding procedures and official statement.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion second. Council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Kangas?
Yes.
Lampy?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rezachek?
Yes.
Scherer?
Yes.
Resolution 17-93 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 3 is resolved to do sale on that second obligation. Motion, please.
Move Resolution 1794, a resolution directing the advertisement for sale of $615,000 amount subject to change, taxable general obligation bond, Series 2017B, and approving electronic bidding procedures and official statement.
Second.
Second.
Council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote.
Kangas?
Yes.
Lampy?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rezachek?
Yes.
Scherer?
Yes.
Resolution
What made you
17-94.
vote? Sorry, Waldstein? Yes. Boy.
We voted, right? Yeah, okay. Regular business item number 4 is to maintain Waverly water reliability through the purchase of an upgraded supervisory control and data acquisition system, which for the public gets down to SCADA, S-C-A-D-A. City Administrator, any comments on this one?
Just that this software is about 10 years old. It's becoming obsolete, and we're wanting to replace it before we have some serious issues with it.
Okay. Motion, please.
I'll move the approval of purchase of equipment and services from Primex of Plymouth, Minnesota for the water system iControl conversion, SCADA upgrades for the installation cost of $14,154, a monthly software subscription fee of $170.
A second, please.
Second.
Council discussion? Public input? All in favor? Signify with yes.
Yes.
No? Unanimously approved. Regular business item number 5 is to recoup our 90% FAA promised cost return for the airport safety zone project. City Administrator, this is the final chapter on this little parcel, right? This will complete it.
Close, yes. This would be the acceptance of the agreement to receive that assistance from the federal government for the prior money spent for acquisition administrative costs.
Okay, formal motion.
Move approval of Resolution 17-95, a resolution approving the Federal Aviation Administration grant agreement for federal assistance for the acquisition and administrative costs to date for the Airport Safety Zone project at the Waverly Municipal Airport.
Second, please.
Second.
Motion seconded. Council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Chair.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Bezincheck.
No.
Passes 5-1. Regular business item number 6 is mayoral appointments. I'd like to reappoint Gary Grace, Steve Egley, and Jean Lieb to the Economic Development Commission. I'd like to appoint Linda Hobden and reappoint Don Meyer and Pete Newell to the Historic Preservation Commission. Motion, please.
Move approval of the mayoral appointments.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Unanimously approved. Congratulations to all those who are serving and will be serving on these important commissions. Just a word for our commissions. They're doing a phenomenal job and a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and it's very exciting. We have a report from the Bremer Waverly Law Board. Their minutes from July 10th. Any comments?
Again, I think I've noticed this a couple of times, but the board is dealing with air conditioning, heat exchangers on the roof that are aging themselves out. So we may see a little uptick in our share of building costs over the next few years as they start to replace those. These units are original to the building and they're just at end of life, and as they break down we need to replace them. And we've been budgeting for 2 replacements the last couple of years, and due to some issues there'll be 4 replaced this year, but there's enough in reserve to cover that. But going forward, again, we just may see our share in the front end of the law enforcement building go up a little bit over the next couple of years.
Thank you for your service to that committee, too. You're very faithful and helpful. Any other comments? Officially received. Staff comments.
I don't believe we have any, sir. Thank you.
Council comments. Edie?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Lampy?
Great job for the Heritage Days. I was real impressed with. I just went Saturday night, but it was a very good show.
Yeah, I agree. It was, we were here this weekend and actually stuck around for it to be a part of it. It was a good time to see everything that was going on and all the work that went into it. So,
Thank you, David.
I would concur a number of comments of people, the number of family-friendly type activities with the kids on Saturday in particular, ability there. Question for Mike, just on Bremer Avenue, kind of update where we are, next stage coming up for us, First Street Southeast closing a little bit, or getting ready to, what are our next stages so people know what's coming up? I know you said August 1st for the West End to open.
Update on that, probably August 14.
Okay.
So we had a progress meeting the Wednesday following the council meeting, so that's a more current date. They are aware of when school starts, when teachers go back, so they kind of know what their drop dead date is. In regards to First Street on the east side, you can now turn off of Bremer. First Street Southeast is accessible off of Bremer Avenue. And by Friday, First Street Northeast will be accessible, so coming and going from City Hall here. A week from Friday, we expect to have First Street West open, both First Street Northwest and First Street Southwest, being able to utilize that intersection fully. There's going to be some modifications made to the traffic signal at First Street West. in anticipation of the traffic control that is going to be set up for the Stage 4 construction, which we are anticipating will start on or about August 14, depending on the weather. So that will be a 3-phase signal operation that we are looking at putting into operation on August 7, a week before the traffic control is going to be installed for Stage 4. We want people to get accustomed to that and not have to deal with multiple changes all at once. What we're going to allow for, or the way the intersection is going to be structured, is we will have protected left turns for for eastbound traffic and westbound traffic. So it'll be westbound only, eastbound only, and then the north-south traffic. And that's going to be very different than what people are accustomed to, but is going to be necessary in order to accommodate turning vehicles and the volume of traffic that has to make it through the construction zone.
So 14th is Stage 4 is,
On or about August 14th is,
and that's First Street through 9th.
yes,
Thereabouts.
right. But the good news is the west end will be open.
Right. As far as turning off of Bremer, 1st through 9th, it's going to be basically a corridor through there that.
Correct.
nobody will be able to- Are we, where are we turning them? Are we turning them at, coming south, coming north on 4th Street? Are they turning at Burger King at 8th?
The official detour is going to be 10th Avenue over to Heritage Way on Highway 3. The unofficial detour for the local traffic is however you can get around, but we're going to provide some assistance, and we're going to set it up similar to what we did for the Dry Run Creek project. We're going to make 5th and 6th Avenue one-way streets with no parking, so that if you miss the detour and you're coming up, we're going to want you to take from the south, coming from the south, we're going to want you to take 6th Avenue over to 1st Street and then come up to Bremer Avenue that way. If you're wanting to go south from City Hall here, you will also turn left onto 1st Street, go down to 5th Avenue, over to Kids Kingdom, and then head south. So, kind of hard to visualize. We're going to provide some aids, and this is part of that meeting that's coming up on July 26th for the property owners along Bremer Avenue, as well as the public, and this is one that we're certainly wanting the press to come to so that we can help get the word out on what to expect.
And our newspaper is affected by that, right, Mike? Waverly newspaper office is going to be affected by that, right?
Well, you're within the construction zone, so yes.
Any thoughts on doing something with the light at 10th, West 10th? But
No.
Joe's or anything to help turning traffic? People were diverting along 2nd Avenue and cutting back that way. Okay. That seems to be the other maybe natural clog point that people would, at least in town, divert to. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mike?
I'm not so much of a parade and fireworks guy, but what I really appreciated about Heritage Days was the historic preservation presentation on Saturday. It gave me an excuse finally to get inside of First Baptist Church, and as a little bonus, I got to have a nice chat with the pastor, so that was nice. But it was a good presentation, and I just don't know how many historic districts one town can manage at one time. We've got 4. Maybe that's enough.
Or maybe not. Northeast, hold your fingers crossed. Mike or Dan?
Just with doing the bonding for Champions Ridge, have we had any conversations with them to see how things are going? And I'm wondering if we couldn't maybe invite them to a September, October study session to get an update.
Yeah, I've not had a lot of conversation about the progress, but we most certainly can have them attend as early as September to give that update to council and kind of have a precursor as to where they're expecting to be, end of December, so we're not waiting till that last minute. So I can certainly make that connection and have that happen.
Thank you, Dan. Kyle.
Yeah, no comments on the agenda, but as far as Heritage Days goes, as a young family, it's nice to have those activities and keep seeing Waverly put efforts into those types of activities and things like that. So,
You're, just for the public, your family, what age?
we have a almost 2-year-old and an almost born child.
They all count. Thanks, Kyle. It's great to have you with us as a guest council person. Yeah, I want to piggyback a little bit on the Southwest the area. A good significant portion of the Southwest Waverly is now in historic district, as the National Park Service has so established, and it's just a tremendous status thing. To have that part of Heritage Days was just wonderful, and so a lot of momentum, a lot to smile about, and with that, ask for adjournment.
We adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Adjourned.